Greetings, fellow Adobe fans, and thank you for coming to the session. My name is Roman Villarreal, and I'm based out of Austin, Texas. I'm the principal at Lumenbright. We're an Adobe digital design training company that specializes in teaching the Creative Cloud apps. At last year's MAX, I featured a collaboration with a designer from the Disney Channel. This year, we're going to be working with the Itty Bitty Inn, a budget hotel in North Bend, Oregon that provides a safe, comfortable, and clean place for travelers on Oregon's coastal highway. It was first opened in 1950, but my brother Rick bought it in 2014 and totally reimagined it into a fun, kooky, and wholesome place. It has all these vintage throwbacks that we're going to take a look at as I weave some of the Adobe collaborative tools and some of my favorite tips and tricks inside of Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign.
So let's start by taking a look at some of our collaboration tools. We can either access them through the CC app at the top of the interface on the Mac or down below on the PC. Over here in your work, you can see all the collaborative tools. We have our CC libraries. CC libraries help you collect, organize, and share and reuse creative assets across applications and teams. Right here we have Cloud Docs. Cloud Docs can be XD files, Photoshop files, Illustrator files, Aero files, and Fresco files. Cloud Docs enable you to easily work across devices and invite others to work with your peers. Right here, we can access a sync folder. The sync folder is a folder that gets installed on our computer whenever we install the Creative Cloud app. You can see I have a ton of stuff up here because I use this quite a bit. It's like a Dropbox or like a Google Drive type feature. There's a little link in here that'll take me to assets.adobe.com, which is the companion site for the CC app. Here I have the cloud documents that I stored up here. Right here you can see my synced files. What's the difference between cloud documents and sync files? Well, first of all, cloud documents store on the cloud and not on a computer. You can save these files. In fact, they save automatically as you go, as you're editing them in different apps. They also have version history, which we'll take a look at in just a second. Over here, you can also access your libraries. So if you deleted an item from one of your libraries, you can go back to the deleted section here and bring it back or permanently delete it. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and restore it. I think I went to high school with this guy. And now he's back. I come to this library, and it's in the same library from which I deleted it. Any links that it had to it, any share links, are also restored. One of the great features about using cloud assets is I can share them, either via a link or through a collaboration method here that we'll take a look at later on in the session. So I'm here in Illustrator, and I have a file that my designer sent to me via email. So I'm going to choose File, Save As, and instead I'm going to save this as a cloud document. And as I always say, get out of my dreams and get into my cloud. Anyways, now this is a cloud document, and I know that's the case because there's a little cloud icon and it's got an AIC extension now. This gives me access to use the version history panel right here inside of Illustrator, and as I make changes, I'll be able to see them on the fly. And now that this file is up on the cloud, I can go to assets.adobe.com and I can see that file's right there. So I can take this and create a link, and I can share this link with somebody. I can even also allow commenting so we can have a collaboration here. So I went ahead and shared this asset with my client, and I can take a look at this document here and I can make comments. On the client side, this is what they see, and they can go ahead and make their own comments. They can also use push pins and even draw things here on the screen. If I make changes here in my document and I place, say, Mr. Sasquatch here, and I save this file, when I go back to my client's document and refresh the screen, they'll see the change happen as well. They can copy this file to their work even if they don't have a paid Creative Cloud subscription. So keep an eye out for the new and upcoming features inside of Cloud Docs, including asynchronous editing with Photoshop and Illustrator files, and the ability to place and embed cloud documents inside of other documents. Back in Illustrator, I can take my Cloud Doc and look back in previous versions. I can see the changes on the fly here, and if I want to revert it, I can just push these little buttons and revert back to this previous version.
I have all these assets that are inside the cloud document, but I want to add them into a library so that I can access them in the Creative Cloud apps. So I've already taken these color swatches and I made color groups. This is an old school thing to use and it works great, but I want to make these a cloud asset. So I can highlight the three of them here and I can click on this button right here that will add those swatches and color groups to my current library. And there they are, they're added. Now apparently you can only add 5 swatches per color group right now. but I'm being told by Adobe that that will change next year. So what other things can I add? Well, I can take this logo and I can just drag it right in and it gets added, or I can select this white logo here and I could push this plus button and that will let me choose either the fill color or the graphic. I'm going to choose graphic and there it is. I should probably rename this logo. I'm going to call it white logo, and this one I'm going to call button logo. These things are kind of mixed up with my colors, and you can start adding pictures and all sorts of stuff, and it gets to be a huge mess. There's a way that you can organize these now with groups. You can either do it manually or you can auto-generate these groups, and there you go. They've put these into some vector graphic groups, and they've got a color groups, and it looks pretty good. Any new thing I add will get ungrouped, and I can make new groups if I want to. Another nice thing is I can right-click on this item here, and I can choose to add a description. So maybe I put, this is the current logo or whatever. And that way my team will know exactly what this is for instead of just having to guess. Another nice feature inside this library is that you can feature things by list or these little thumbnail views. You can organize these by type or view. You can also search for things. So let's say I'm looking for logos. This is actually looking through all my libraries because there is these little filters here, right here, where I can search for all my libraries. You can also look through just the current library, and you can also search for stock in here, which you've probably seen this before in other demos, because I know I have. You can actually search for stock right within the library panel. There's also a way where you can filter, and maybe I just want to look at templates, and this will load templates inside of this window. These are all related to Illustrator. Most of these aren't free, but if you want the free stuff, just create a new document and click on any of these right here, and you'll find lots of free templates, assets, and so forth that you can use in your project. Anyways, back over here, what I can also do is I can push this button right here, and I can share this library. It pops open the app, and I'm able to share this. I can email someone, and this is going to allow me to collaborate with them. I can allow them to edit, or they can just be allowed to view this file. And I can also disallow them. I can cancel them. The other thing I can do in here is I can click on these little dots and I can get a link, which this is great because I can just share this link in an email to someone, and it's in my own email client with my own signature and everything, and they'll be able to access these assets in their Creative Cloud apps.
Adobe has also provided a free add-in for PowerPoint and Word on Windows so that you can access your CC libraries and use them in your documents.
So going back to Illustrator, I can add some other icons that I'm working on, like this guy right here, Mr. Bigfoot, and he gets added. I could drag him inside of this group here, but I have some other icons as well. In fact, I have several icons I want to work with. So what I've done is I've added a bunch of icons on top of each other. In my layers panel, I've labeled them too and put them in their own layers. This is going to be really helpful, and we're going to see this later in action when we get it to InDesign. But all I have to do to add this to my library is I can just highlight everything, go to my libraries panel, and drag that in. In fact, I'm not going to even drag it here. I'm going to drag it inside the group that I want it to be in. And bam, there it is. I'm going to go ahead and relabel this. I'm going to call this icon stack. There you go. And it'll be ready for me when I'm ready to use it inside of InDesign. So going back to my style guide, let's look at these fonts. These fonts are mostly Adobe fonts, except for these two. And there's a lot of fonts in here because Itty Bitty Inn has themed rooms, and so different rooms have different fonts. You'll notice these glyphs or ornaments down here. Adobe Fonts has glyphs and ornaments now, and they are cool. So check them out when you get a chance. And I'll show you a little preview in just a second. But I have these pink backgrounds on these fonts here, and this indicates that there's missing fonts that I don't have installed on my computer, but my designer emailed them to me. Thanks, designer. I come to this folder of files that they sent me, a lot of stuff, and these are the fonts that they gave me. And so they're not installed yet. And I could install them, but they won't be available to me on all my different computers that I have, and I have a lot. So instead, what I can do is I'm going to select these here. I'm going to go to the Creative Cloud app, and up above, there's a little F. You can click on that. This is a place where I can browse for more fonts, but instead I'm going to go to this magic little place that says Add Fonts to Creative Cloud and choose Add More. And now I can just drag those files in here. So I'm going to go to my Finder and drag them in. And You have to have license for these. These were free fonts and I had a license agreement in the file, so I'm cool. Go ahead and hit add. And they've been added to the cloud. When I go back to Illustrator here and maybe blink a little bit, maybe save the file, bam, they've been updated. So these are now in the cloud and they're accessible on my devices under my login. These other typefaces that you see here though are Adobe fonts. And so I'm going to click on the Creative Cloud app and choose Browse More Fonts. This is going to launch the fonts.adobe.com site and I can see all the fonts here. I went ahead and entered some sample text. You can also change that and choose alphabets, or you can choose these words here. These represent characters of the alphabet in fancy, weird sentences. These are called pangrams, okay? You can also move the fonts up and down to see what that looks like. There's some other filtering things. These are professional grade, carefully curated fonts that you can use in your project that you're already paying for. You can filter stuff and you can even try different fonts here to see, what exactly is a black letter font? Well, now you know. It's Old English style, baby. And what I like to do is I like searching for fonts because I'm a bit of a nerd here. And in my searching, in my looking around, skulking around the site, I found the Typoteca series. It's cool stuff, old school stuff that probably will look good with the itty bitty N. Apparently it's something about Typoteca Italia, 1920s graphics elements. Sounds good to me. And there's hyperlinks. And it's made by this type designer. Apparently they're real people. Who knew? There's a link here to P98A Berlin. I'm going to click on that and it takes me to this site. What is this? Where have I ventured to? It's cool stuff, old Heidelberg presses and cool people hanging out with posters. I love it. It's exciting. It gives me that little tingly feeling I first had when I started in design. And so I love this stuff, the way it just takes you down a rabbit hole. Maybe you'll find something really interesting. For example, let's say I go to the Emigre fonts. Emigre has some beautiful fonts. There's even a video and there's like little stuff. And look at this, Poppy. That's the font that I have inside of my document right now. It's got all these ornaments, which is new to me because I've not seen these up on the Adobe font site for very long.
And what is that? Toilet paper? The itty bitty N might have toilet paper. And they definitely have record players. So back here in Illustrator, I can test some of those glyphs. I can also go to Window, Type, Glyphs, and take a look at the entire glyph panel and add those as needed. Let's go ahead and take a look at Photoshop now. I want to go ahead and add some images to my library. I can go to Windows Explorer Finder and drag some images directly into my library here and rename them. Once I've done that, I can select these images and I can drag them to my Layers panel, commit all the changes, and then I can get started working on them. First one I'm going to start with is this one. I need to change out that sky. That's an Oregon coastal day. So I want to make it look a little shinier. And I got a VW bus, so peace and free love and rainbows. So we're going to go ahead and go to Edit, Sky Replacement, new feature. And I can replace it with the sky. I have a list of skies in here that I can go through and find one maybe that's more suitable, particularly this overcast day with a rainbow. I can move the sky around. If I move it too much, you can see it break, but you can pull it around here. You can scale up that image if you want that rainbow to be larger. You can flip it. There's some color adjustments. And what this is doing is it's not just adding an image, it's actually adding some adjustment layers over this image so that it looks more realistic. You can shift the edge. There's some color changes and so forth. There's a whole lot of tools in here. When you're done, hit OK, and that sky is done. I'm going to jump over to this other image right here. And I'm going to hide these sky layers so they don't get in the way. In fact, what I might be better off doing is selecting both of these layers right here, this sky replacement layer and maybe the mural bus layer. And I can go ahead and just group them and call them P2 bus. Jumping right over here to this image, I want to modify this a little bit because it's a bright sunny day. I'm pretending that this is Oregon, but it's actually in Austin. So rather than go ahead and using the traditional Photoshop tools, I'm going to use a camera raw filter. So I go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, which can be used for raw images, of course, but can also be used on JPEGs. So here I'm going to go ahead and change some of these settings. If you're familiar with these tools, or you're learning these tools, you're also learning the Lightroom tools at the same time.
And if you understand some of these concepts, you'll also be pretty good at the Lumetri tools inside of Premiere Pro and in After Effects. So I'm going to change the temperature here, make it a little cooler. I can adjust the exposure, maybe adjust a little less texture, more clarity, so forth, a little more vibrance. Whatever you like doing with your photos, you can do with this. One of the features I want to show you though, one of the things I really like, is I can go to the detail section and I can reduce the noise. And this will soften the face. Of course, if I go too far, it looks really fake, really overtouched. But this is a really fast way of making touch-ups. Before I do this though, I'm going to go ahead and adjust this image by kind of removing that spot there. And there is a spot removal tool. So I can select that little spot right there. And if that's not satisfactory, I can adjust another place on her face so that it matches a little better. I can hit enter again and hit enter again. And once I got that done, I can go ahead and add that noise reduction back, and it's looking pretty darn good. I can come right here as well and see before and after. It's looking pretty good and with very minimal effort. One more thing I like doing is I like adding these graduated filters. So maybe I'll add one right here, maybe add some blue, and basically what it does is kind of adds an interesting color but also draws the viewer to her face. There's also some radial filters, so I can maybe add that right there. Maybe add a different temperature just to her face, a little more exposure, make it a little brighter. And when I'm all done, I can hit OK. There's a lot of really cool features in this tool set. The change has been made, and if from here I want to go ahead and add another sky, I can do sky replacement as well, and maybe add that rainbow back. I'm done, I hit OK, and the changes have been applied. When you're done making your changes to all your images, you can just select everything and drag it into your library. You don't really need to save this file as a cloud document or on your desktop because it is being stored in the CC Libraries panel. I'm going to go ahead and rename this, and I'll call this P2 Images because we'll be doing something really cool with this inside of InDesign. I'd also like to work on this image that's going to go on the front of my brochure. It's not a very good quality image, but I'm going to work with it. First of all, I'll notice that the image layer here is locked, so I'm going to double click on that and rename it to remove the lock and to also give it some kind of name. Then I'm going to go up to filter, and instead of just applying the camera raw filter directly to it, I'm going to convert it for smart filters, and that way my camera raw filter will be editable after the fact. And go to filter, camera raw filter, and from here I'm going to go directly to that noise reduction and see how good of a job this is doing. So I bring that up, I can bring the detail down, and that looks a whole lot better. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Not too bad. I want to go ahead and edit these lines out, and so to do so I'm going to have to double click on this object to get inside of it. So I can use my spot healing brush tool to kind of start painting out these lines. Of course, it's going to take a little bit of time to do this. But when I'm done, I save this file and jump back into my other file. From here, I could go to Edit, choose Sky Replacement again because, why not? The rainbow is kind of overplayed, so instead I went ahead and imported an image. You can do that by clicking on the little plus button down here, and you can add your image. It's a little overdone, but that's okay. Look how great it does behind this tree here. I can continue making these adjustments and so forth like I showed you earlier. When I'm done, I hit OK, and that's been committed. I went ahead and did some additional work, and you'll see that I also replaced the sign here on the final piece of artwork. We're going to move this into InDesign here in just a second. I prefer working with Photoshop files in InDesign because it gives me a lot more flexibility with my images. So now that we have some assets created, we're going to go ahead and move into InDesign. I have a template I made, but I didn't start from scratch. I got a template from Adobe stock. This is what it looks like. That's what it looked like originally. On the Adobe stock website, I was able to take it and save it to my library directly, which is great. But what about my templates? Can I save my templates to the library? To do that, I can choose File, Save As, and save it as an InDesign template. So I can take this template file and just drag it into my CC libraries and be able to share that with my team. So they can take this template, double click on it, and it'll launch right inside of InDesign with all of your fonts and all of the pictures and everything that you put together in here. The fonts are automatically synchronized if you're using the Adobe fonts.
And I won't have any broken links because all of these images are part of the same library.
So I made this little brochure for the iterating. I have the front and the back with assets that I assembled from my CC libraries. I'd like to share it with Rick because he's in North Bend, Oregon, and I'm in Austin. I can choose share for review. You can give it a name. I can make it by invite only, or I can invite just anyone who wants to click on that link. I can add his email address and he'll get an invitation to access this link. If I make any changes, I can update this asset on the cloud. Let's take a look at what that looks like. And there it is. It's all blown out and zoomed in, so there's some controls at the bottom that I can choose to zoom that out. And there's also a little pages panel here, so I can take a look at the front and the back. This is a great collaboration feature because I can come in here and I can say, Rick, check this new logo out, and submit that, and I'll see the chain of review comments in here. And I can see these comments as they're coming in. And I can also see them in InDesign if I go to Window, Comments, Review. I can make any changes that are required. And then to update Rick, I would just push Update Link, and he'll be able to access the same link and see those changes applied.
So now that I have my template here and it's all ready to go, I'm going to take some of these assets from my library and dump them into placeholders that are already on the page. I'm going to start by grabbing this Photoshop file that I made with you. Just drag that in there, looking pretty good. I also have a placeholder for my logo. So up here, I have this logo here. I'm going to drag this in, and you can see it's kind of a problem. I should have made an alternate color for this guy. You see, I already have an orange one, and this is my alternate button. So I'm going to right click and choose Edit, and it's going to launch in Illustrator because that's where it was made. So I can change this color with one of our other brand colors to update this asset. Notice that this long file name indicates that it is a cloud asset. I'm going to save this file, jump back into InDesign, and it's been updated. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this P2 images here and just drag it out into this frame. Now check this out. I can right click and go to Object Layer Options, and I can see all the layers that are available to me in this Photoshop file. I can turn off all these other layers because I don't need them, but I can also look at this layer here where I have this P2 bus, and I can see the sky replacement. I can turn that off and on. So if you can imagine, I could have added additional adjustment layers for black and white or for hue and saturation changes to be able to customize this image right here within InDesign. I'm going to go ahead and add another image down here using the same P2 images. So I can click on that there. I can right click, Object Layer Options, and this time I'm going to turn off all of these images with the exception of the biker friends and hit OK. In this case, I'll just right click and choose Fitting and fill the frame proportionally. If I need to resize this image because I'm not satisfied with it, because you see it kind of gets cut off on the top and bottom, I can just double click on it, hold my Option or Alt on PC and your Shift key, and that'll draw it from the center out proportionally. I also have some other placeholders in here where I can add additional images. Right here, I'm going to add a icon that I created earlier in Illustrator. So I have this icon stack, and instead of adding this individual image, I'm going to add this stack. And when I plop that out there, I can see I have all these images here and they're stacked on top of each other. So I can right click just as I did with that other Photoshop file, and I can come in here and I can turn off all the images that I don't need to use. I can hit OK, and I can use my fitting options, or I can also hold my Shift and my Option key, Alt key on the PC, and I could shrink him down to the size that I want him to be. So I went ahead and finished up this document, added some additional images here. I went ahead and put Sasquatch down here, encroaching on the lake, and this is one of the rooms, a Tiki Cha-Cha room. I got a animation line here coming in because I've added some of these interactive controls. You can do that inside of InDesign. There's also a little audio file I added here. So what I can do is if I just needed to share this project, traditional way, I could just package it. I could take that folder that it creates and put it inside of my synced files and be able to share that synced asset folder to somebody else. But in this case, I want to publish it online because I want to make this cool interactive piece that I can share with a client. I'm going to go ahead and go through these options and I can publish it. So one of the interesting features here is that after I publish this and I've shared this link with someone, I can track it. And I can click on this link right here and it'll take me to a dashboard where I can take a look at the statistics for this presentation. When I want to view the document, I click to view the document here. All right, so now we're on the internet with our itty-bitty pitch deck. I can go ahead and go to the next slide here, or I can also make some interactive buttons inside of InDesign.
That also works. Got some bicycles, beer taps, and vintage Ataris. How about some experiences, tours, and excursions? Maybe go check out North Bend, Oregon on bicycle. And we have one of his 5 themed rooms, the Tiki Cha-Cha room, with some sweet tunes. And dancing! This little guy was made in After Effects using the Puppet Pen tool, then exported as an animated GIF. That's right, animated GIFs are supported in the Publish Now feature. I hope you've enjoyed this action-packed session featuring the Itty Bitty N. Please visit this link at lumenbright.com/Max to get more information about the Adobe Creative Cloud collaboration tools that I've talked about today. Thank you very much for attending this session and have a wonderful day.